Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and I want to talk to you about the effectiveness of marketing. Marketing. It is the word that I think you have two camps. You have the one that hates it, and so they avoid it at all costs, and then you have the one that is like, oh, I love marketing, and then they end up spending all of this time playing office and not doing anything that actually moves the needle. And I want to talk to you about this because I was just working with a hospital, and as I was working with the hospital, they were building out their internal medicine department. And I said, hey, we got to ramp up because one of my responsibilities there is to help with the marketing public relations side of things. Now, Jamie, what does that have to do with finance? Everything. It has everything to do with finance because I need to see where leads are coming in, what our demographics are, what the income is for households, right? You know, where are we pricing ourselves? Where are the locations at? Can it sustain something? So we want to look at this greater economic impact of an area. And that really ties into a lot of my responsibilities in finance. So I'm very hands-on in our marketing and our branding and our message so that we can make sure that we are making the most amount of money and staying the most amount of profitable and doing all of these things. And by the way, every large company organization does this as well. So if you've ever traveled out of a country, in fact, I got back from Mexico not too long ago and brought up Amazon and everything was in pesos. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's fine because it's recognizing that my IP address is in Mexico. So it's converting it into Mexican pesos. But that's not what was interesting. What was interesting was products and services. I know exactly what the costs are in the United States are different in Mexico because large organizations like Amazon, like Google, like Netflix, they price their products by region. And so if I wanted to buy a pair of shoes and I'm in the Pacific Northwest and they're hiking shoes, those shoes are going to be around $200. Now, shoes have had some advancements in the last couple of decades, incorporation of Gore-Tex, maybe they're waterproof, all these different things. They have not had so many advancements that they should be worth $200 now. I mean, they're still just shoes. And so if I was in Louisiana and I was looking for a pair of hiking shoes, guess how much they would cost? It's not $200. Instead, all of these algorithms are tied into where we are shopping from. And that's an important part of understanding the marketing expectations and economic impact that comes around every single brand product that we display and every time we try to price our services. So as I was working with this particular client and we were talking about their internal medicine department that they're going to build out, they said, hey, don't start marketing it yet because we don't have it fully staffed up. And I said, fantastic. That tells me I definitely want to start marketing it right now. And they said, hold on a second. We haven't even ordered all the equipment. We don't have everything in. And I said, yeah, but what you're misunderstanding about marketing is a lot of us, we post a message out there. We do some small movement of marketing and we think that the doors are going to open and business is going to flood through it. And it doesn't happen that way. Ask anyone that has opened a small business. If that's a restaurant, that's a boutique, is something of that nature. Once you've invited your friends and family, then the sales begin to diminish. And now you have to work on just establishing a customer base. And the marketing efforts that you put into it had to happen, in my perspective, 6 months before you wanted to see results. When I think about marketing, I think about a 6-month leadway. And I just had that reinforced with Shalansky & Associates, RRIA up in Anchorage, Alaska. We have a niche market. We target and work with a lot of federal employees. They have a unique benefit structure. Micah Shalansky, my baby brother, he's an expert in their benefits. He has been mentioned in congressional campaigns about it. He has been asked questions by the Office of Personnel Management. He's found errors. He's worked instrumentally with HR departments. This is our area of focus. We put a lot of content around helping people who are federal employees understand their benefits and make smart decisions that incorporate their greater financial plan with their benefit structure. And so that is a very specific target. That's a very niche market. And if you're not sure if you should be in a niche market market. And if it's right for you, then you need to go and listen to the podcast I recorded called Niche Slapped, because it is going to tell you everything you need to know about whether or not you should service a niche. And so as we have ours, and we do a lot of content writing, I write most of the articles, Micah does most of the videos, we give it over to our publication team, and it's videos, it's shorts, it's websites, it's articles, it's third party. And so it's just this monstrous marketing machine. Why? Because that's the top of our funnel. The top of our funnel is bringing in prospects that want to know more about financial planning based on the content that we are providing. And so in that content, we're establishing credibility. In the 80s and 90s, this credibility was normally established with seminars. You would do a seminar that would normally be about 8 hours, and you'd break it up. You'd either have a full day session, you'd have a luncheon, you'd have a couple of Tuesdays, or you would divide it out into 2-hour classes. However you sliced and diced that seminar, you had 8 hours of being in front of a prospect. And what were you doing that entire time? You were establishing your credibility. You were establishing whether or not you were somebody worth listening to. And this becomes so important, especially in our media digital age. And by the way, if you're asking me, Jamie, are seminars old school? Do they no longer work? They work. They work. Most marketing in financial planning works if you work it. So seminars still work. We got away prior to COVID. We decided to ramp down our seminars just because we just hit a point. We were just like, you know what? We're not showing up giving our best right now. So let's just ramp it down, take a little hiatus. COVID gave us a much longer hiatus than we had anticipated. And we got itchy to get in front of an audience again. So we ramped seminars back up. We had an overwhelming response. We had such a big response to an in-person class doing our seminar up in Anchorage, Alaska, that I was sweating it the night before whether or not the space we rented was going to be big enough for all those people. What a problem to have. Pro tip. The day of the seminar, I have my entire team show up an hour earlier than when I was expecting prospects and clients. Why? Because prospects and clients might show up 30 minutes and I need to be 30 minutes ahead of that time. And so even though I was stressed out about whether or not our room was big enough, what was I instructing most of my team to do? I was having them break down the back 2 row of tables and go stack them up to the side and the chairs. Now, counterintuitive, right? I was expecting a larger audience than I had room for. And I was deliberately breaking down tables and chairs and having them stacked up in the back, knowing I would not have enough seats for everyone that showed up. Why did I do this? Because there is one law in life that is consistent across all things that we do, and that is supply and demand. And so the people that showed up early, they got their seats, no problem. The people that showed up on time or dare late, guess what? We had to stop. We had to fold tables. We had to get them out. Was it disruptive and noisy in the back as we put tables and chairs out? Yep, sure was. Did everyone in that room know that we had to bring in additional tables and chairs? And that's what we were doing in the back? Yep, they sure did. And why would I do it every single time? Because when those people go back to their agency and they say, hey, did you have a good day? What was going on? Blah, blah, blah. They say, oh my gosh, I just attended this class. It was freaking awesome. We went through all these different topics. This is how I registered. It was amazing, blah, blah, blah. And they're going on about it. What is the one thing that they're going to say also? Make sure you show up early because they didn't have enough seats for everyone. And then all of a sudden, now I've created this scarcity. Now I have this demand. Now I have this surge of people trying to get in and being like, wow, you need to really get there because everyone wants to be a part of a sold out event. Everyone wants a seat at a table of a restaurant that they can't get into for 6 months. So we do it all the time on the scarcity, on the supply and these demand factors. And so when it comes to marketing, we have to think about that all of the time. And so earlier, this summer, I was getting kind of frustrated. We have this giant pool of advisors, and it should no longer be at the point that Micah and I are the ones primarily producing content. We should be at the point that we have multiple advisors and everyone should be producing content. And so I'm getting frustrated and I'm making, do you guys understand the value of this? And it's one of these things where you're producing content, and if you're young and new in this business, you think by publishing that content that your phone is going to start ringing off the hook, that people are going to hit the button, they're going to hit your Calendly, they're going to get scheduled, they're going to chart, come in for an appointment, and all these things are going to happen because your video just got published that same day. And one of the things that I tell people is when your video gets published, do not go look at it. Do not, because what are you going to do? You're going to be looking at how many times people viewed it. You're going to be looking at how many likes, how many comments, and then you're putting yourself and judging yourself against unrealistic standards because we are like, oh, that video went viral, viral, viral. And so we're looking at a video that gets 4 million views of a clam digging itself down with its digger in the Pacific Northwest, and we're judging our financial planning content against the clam that got 4 million views. That's unlikely. That's unrealistic. That's a totally different thing. That was entertainment. This is education. And so I don't like them looking at the views, looking at the likes, doing those kind of things. We do address comments that come in, not as fast as I would like it to, but we live in a compliance industry. So I don't want you looking at that type of content. I want you just focused on what you have to do, and that is answer people's questions. You need to deliver value to them consistently and regularly. And the more you do that, the greater following you will have. And so this summer, because prospects ebb and flow, right? It's if I tell you that our company had 100 prospects, they probably were all grouped together within certain amounts of time that came through. And some months you could have zero. Some months you could have zero. When are those months most likely? Probably July, probably June and July. Why? Because most of the country is out on holiday. You got kids at home, you got camp, you got family, you got vacations, the sun is out, you're doing all of those summertime activities. You're not necessarily sitting down and going, holy cow, we got to get serious about financial planning. So that's the importance of having to consistently put out materials. So as I'm preaching this and and if you think for a second that we don't get fatigued by putting out all of the amount of content that we do, you're kidding yourself. Because just like any weightlifter, just like any Olympian, just like any pro chef, pro chefs don't want to come home and cook for themselves. They just don't. In fact, one of my favorite Instagram people is a personal chef that's in Fiji, and her whole channel is, what do I cook for myself when I've been cooking for everyone else all day and I don't want to do it? And so it's one pot amazing meals that taste great and are nourishing, but don't have a lot of flair in them necessarily. So as we put out this material, you're waiting for all these people to call in. You're getting kind of fatigued. Another one's calling in, and you have to consistently and disciplinarily do it. You have to be disciplined about putting out your content, because just this week, TPR Nation, my relationship manager lead was blowing me up, and I couldn't, find a time. So she tried really hard one day to get a hold of me. I was just jammed. So the second day she got a hold of me and she said, Jamie, and I was like, yeah, what's going on? What's happening? And she said, we had 8 prospects this week call us to book an appointment for $497. 8 prospects. And I said, what? It's Wednesday. In the last 2 days? She said, yes, in the last 2 days, we had 8 people hit our website. And when I'm trying to figure out where they came from, some of them just Googled us and we popped up. Some of them had been watching the channel. Some of them had gone to a seminar, but the seminar had been a couple of years ago. Whatever that was, because we consistently and regularly put out content, and our message, even though we get tired of saying it sometimes, remains the same. In our group of financial advisors, we might say things a little differently, but a lot of times we're using the same language with clients. And so as you talk to different people, it doesn't matter who in our office you're working with, you're going to hear the same message. And when that's reinforced to people over and over and over and over again, over the course of years, all of a sudden something in their life is going to change and they're going to need help. Some life trigger happens. And my dad would tell us all this time, one of my first responsibilities at Shalansky & Associates, which was started by my mom and dad, Floyd and Rosa Shalansky, was first I was a janitor, then I was a cold caller, and then graduated to the level of being able to send out mail. And we would send out 20 to 40,000 flyers for successful money management and financial strategies for successful retirement. And so we would do these mailers, and they came with these perforated pages. You had to put the label on them. There was no ship center. And if there was, my dad was not paying for a ship center when he had, preteen kids sitting at home. So we would send out thousands of these in our own kitchen-made mailroom. And we would send out these flyers. And I would say, hey, we're sending out 40,000 flyers, but you're getting like 50 people that show up for a seminar. Why do we keep sending it to the same people all the time? Shouldn't we just send it to other people? And my dad said, aha. because it didn't matter to them before, but you never know what's going to change in their life, that it matters to them now. And that was a really important marketing lesson, is that we send out marketing and it's our absolute best, and we're broadcasting it to everyone thinking that this information is urgent, but information is only urgent when it's necessary to you. I don't know how many dentists live in the city that I'm in, but if I had to stop and think about it, I would think about the advertisements that I've seen regularly. But when is the only time I would really, really rack my brain to find the best dentist? When I had an emergency, when I had, a tooth crack, or maybe you got a root canal, or something is happening in your mouth where you really need to get to a dentist. It now becomes top of mind, where before it was just kind of subconsciously out there as part of greater marketing. And that is a lot what financial services is like. People know. In fact, we've had prospects come through our door and pull out old, and I mean old, business cards, like previous logos, previous broker dealers, different disclosures, whatever it was. And they say, I attended this seminar back in the 90s, and I attended this in the early 2000s. I've been holding onto your card because I've been meaning to get around to calling you, and I just haven't. And so a lot of times when we stop our marketing efforts because somebody didn't break down our doors to come through them the second we started publishing marketing, we're forgetting that people are going to reach out to us when it's important to them, not important to us. And so that consistent, disciplined, regular energy that you have to give into marketing pays in spades, but you have to start it before you're ready. And so it's sitting here now in October, and we're getting, prospects coming in that are from marketing pieces we did February, March, April. It was 6 months before they started calling our office and trying to get on the calendar. So as we talk about different action items and things that you could be empowered about doing right now, is having your marketing calendar laid out for the entire year. I love a big vertical calendar. In fact, if you're working, if I see you at a conference and you're like, Jamie, I'd love to talk to you about marketing, could we roll out a vertical calendar? Lay it down. Let's go. Tell me what your focus is. Tell me who you work with. Tell me who you serve. It's not everyone, and it's not pre-retirees. You better be more specific. Go listen to Niche Slapped and you'll know exactly why. But let's lay out that year-long calendar and let's come up with a disciplined cadence. Because if you're sending out client newsletters only when it means something to you, if you're only publishing content when it means something to you, then you're only going to get results sporadically instead of consistently publishing information and creating trust and dependability with your audience, that you're always there. You're always talking about a topic. And if you're curious about what topics that you should be talking about, go listen to your clients. The next time you're in Surge, take all of their questions and say, hey, could this apply to more than one person? Because a lot of times clients don't ask us one-off, only specific to them questions. They kind of come up, but they apply to multiple people. And so if you take those questions and just generalize them, you'll know that Micah and I always refer to our clients as Bob and Sue. And we'll say, hey, I was just meeting with Bob and Sue had this concern and I want to address this topic. Your clients are the best source of gathering information about what you should be marketing about. Because if they're asking you, other people have that question as well. And so if marketing is not your jam, if it's not something that you love to do, then you got to outsource it. You've got to give it to somebody else and then commit to how frequently you're going to show up to make sure. There's no magic company that's going to understand your brand and get your message in front of them. And a lot of these quote unquote agencies, they charge anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 a month. It's all across the board depending on what you want. And not one of them have I ever worked with that has blown me away. Even the $10,000 ones. Just because you pay more doesn't always mean you get more. There's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of packages. There's a lot of, oh, here's your click-through rate. Here's your impressions. I don't give a about impressions. How many people called my office? How many people took an action based on content that I produce? That's what I care about, not how many times the algorithm put my content in front of someone. That's something that's completely outside of my control and in Facebook and Instagram and Google's control. I want to know how many times I produce content that somebody took an immediate action on. That's what's valuable to me. And that tells me what I need to focus on. So I can't give you a great suggestion for marketing agencies. I can tell you that go to them and say 1 page. Don't give me 24 pages that have all these beautiful color images that show how great your digital designer is. Give me 1 page, bottom line. What am I going to pay? What do I get? And then commit to being disciplined about it. Even if you hire an agency to take it over, you have to drive it. You have to drive it. You have to drive that content, and you have to hold them accountable for getting those stuff out. Even if they're set up and tell you that they do those things, I've not once seen one that was fully accountable for it. A lot of times they just give you a report that they're pulling right out of Google, but they're white labeling it with their logo on it and giving you a bunch of information that doesn't mean anything to you, right? It's no different than us printing down a giant risk analysis for our client that doesn't mean anything. Here's all the things that could happen in your life. Instead of identifying our greatest risk is one spouse dying before the other. That's the greatest risk, not trains, not buses, not, all these different pandemics and catastrophes, hurricanes, all of these things that, yes, they could all happen. We can't sit there and write risks around everything in our lives that could happen. So instead, what makes the most sense to me? Well, makes the most sense in my household is, as the primary bread earner, if I die before my spouse does, are they okay? Can they continue to our quality of life? And that's what makes the most sense to me. So when you get those marketing 1 page, and ask them for make it 1 page. So when you get that, what makes the most sense to you? Get rid of the fluff, get rid of the things that you can't control, algorithms, all of those things, and look at what you can control. If I produce this content, can you get it in front of X amount of people in my target audience? And then how many of those people take an action? How many of those hit your website? How many of those follow you? How many of those pick up the phone and call your office? Those are the things that you need to check and monitor subscribers, because those are the things that now are more in your control. Now you can deliver the type of content that means something to those individuals and allow them to take some type of action. So TPR Nation, here at the Perfect RA, we're 100%, speaking of actions, about that. And so I really want you, one, if you have not listened to Niche Slap, go back, listen to it. I get asked this all the time at conferences. Should I niche or should I not niche? Go listen to that. That's going to help you in 45 minutes decide what niche is most appropriate for you and whether or not you should do it. Second of all, you need to have a marketing content calendar laid out for an entire year. I just shared with you that in my experience across multiple industries, medicine, finance, does not matter. Marketing is like a snowball at the top of a mountain, and you got to start early for it to gain momentum, because it's not just instantaneous. You don't throw open the doors. You don't build a website and then have the sales start to flood in. That's not how it works. So you have to build this ahead of time. The third action item that I want you to have that's tied to your marketing calendar is that you have to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined. If you commit to doing this marketing, then you can't override those appointments. You can't blow them off for something else. If you say you're producing content, you've got to get that content out, and you have to be disciplined at it for a year. Why? Because I just told you it's going to take 6 months. 6 months on average before you see the results really start to articulate and come in, because people, they take action when it's most important to them, not most important to you. And at some point, your content is going to be relevant in their life, but you got to be consistently in front of them to make it relevant, to make it dependable, to make it consistent, and somebody that they want to call you because they recognize you have been around for a while. They do trust the things that you're saying. What you say online is matching what you're saying in that conference room. That's so, so important. That's one of the reasons we work painstakingly with our pool of financial advisors and our Shalansky & Associates, our RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska, that we all use the same language, because it builds trust for the client. It builds trust for the client, not because we want you to be a copycat, but because we want to make sure the client is getting the most amount of value, regardless of who they're working with in our office. TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect